Hey guys, I'm Whitney Port and this is With Whit. A lot of you may know me from reality TV, and the reality is a lot's happened since the hills. With Whit is dedicated to having real, raw, and occasionally ridiculous conversations with the people who have had a profound impact on me. Life-changing moments, life-changing people. Because on With Whit, very little is off limits. How did you cope after this? And, what were some of, again, those logical things that you had been trained with in order to help yourself cope?
Yeah. Well, I think some of the things that really helped me in the beginning was taking some time off of work, which I don't think is always an option for people. But for me, being a therapist, a lot of my work is like sitting with people in their pain, in their despair, and we're like walking through their emotions and thoughts. And as much as I needed distraction, I just didn't want to deal with anything pain related, emotional related. I just needed some time for myself to be able to grieve with my husband. I think some of the things that helped me during that time was being able to honestly just feel like crap for many days, to be okay with not being okay, to be able to, I'm a little biased here, but going to therapy was really helpful for me. I'm all about advocating for that. We went to both individual therapy and couples therapy as well too, because I think this really it's not a woman's issue, it's a family issue. So being able to approach that together was really helpful. I think some other things that I did that I really needed at the time was a lot of journaling as well too, just kind of writing everything I'm feeling. And probably one of the biggest thing was getting support. So getting support from the people in my life, but also even looking outside that to women who had experienced miscarriage as well too. That's how, I found out what you sharing about your miscarriage, like that really helped me. Hearing people talk about their stories, talk about how much of a roller coaster it is, being able to get that sense of like validation and recognition of another woman being there, another family being there was incredibly healing to me, because I think a lot of times for women, after they experience miscarriage, they have this kind of thought of, am I making this too big of a deal? That's what I hear a lot of clients say of like, no one else is talking about this.
Right.
So am I don't know, something wrong with me that I'm so upset, or that I'm not upset right now? Like, I don't know what the blueprint is. So being able to hear other people's stories, it just allowed me to be like, it is okay to not be okay. It's okay to be upset, to be sad, to be confused, to be angry, resentful, all the different spectrum of emotions. One thing I tell a lot of my clients that I work with when it comes to experiencing any kind of loss or trauma, telling our story can be so healing for us. Sometimes like it's so confusing in our head. We're like, how do I make sense of this?
Right.
Being able to tell my story over and over and over again actually helps me feel like somewhat at peace with it. Like I can sort this a little bit more. So I found it helpful to be able to share it with others. But there's certainly a point where I'm like, I don't want to say this.
I don't want to talk about it anymore. I mean, I felt that way. I was like telling my friends and family, and then I was recording the podcast about it, and then I was recording YouTube, and then I was posting on social media, and I felt like I was just like airing it over and over and over, and each time I had to talk about it, it was so much more painful. And I was like, why am I kind of punishing myself and continuing to do this? But at the same time, I feel like because I was able to have so many different conversations about it with so many different people, so many different times and points of my healing process, it helped me to actually get through it. And then after those couple weeks of sharing it, I was like, okay, I am actually over this. And I remember a month after it happening, someone was like, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Someone that I hadn't spoken to. And I was like, I kind of for a second was like, what are they talking about? And then I was like, oh my God, I thank you, but I'm totally fine. But then I felt even more guilty that even just after a month of it happening, that I was like totally fine. And now I honestly hardly even think about it. So like, what do you tell people like me who actually kind of feel, like I was talking about this relief and feel totally fine with what happened and kind of feel like numb to it? How do you help people talk through those kinds of emotions?
Yeah. I think the first thing I tell them is that it is completely normal to feel really anything after a miscarriage, that there is no right way to feel after miscarriage. And that's actually a really common response for people, to feel relief or to feel numb afterwards. I hear that so often, but unfortunately most of the time it's in like a closed space, like in a therapy office, because that's the only place that someone feels comfortable talking about it.
Right.
Because there's this idea, and I think that you and your husband talked about this on your podcast, that as women, we're just thought to have to feel completely just over the moon, overjoyed anytime, like about pregnancy. Like, I want to be a mom 100%.
Right.
There's no room for doubt or uncertainty or concern for how is this going to impact my body, my life, my career, my family, anything. So it feels like there's no room to share of like when things don't turn out the way we expected, that, wow, now I'm kind of considering the idea that financially we're kind of going to be in a better spot right now.
Right.
I feel relieved about that. Or actually, maybe this wasn't the best time for us. And I feel kind of relieved that we have more time to focus on our relationship, our career, our future, traveling, things like that.
Right.
Which again is all so normal. So I think where I would approach someone who's dealing with that is, first, again, telling them that it's normal, telling them that they are not alone in that, and that there is no right way to feel. I think alongside that is that a lot of times we don't just feel one thing too. It's like sometimes we feel relief. I feel relief that, okay, I'm not having this baby right now, which means that I get to I have the opportunity to focus on my career, financially I can get a better place, me and my partner can get to a better place. And at the same time, I do feel grief. I feel grief that my child is not going to have a sibling, or that this life wasn't able to come to fruition because I had all these expectations. So I think, again, being able to even normalize the fact that you may feel like 100 emotions all at once and all in the same day too.
I think that's something that my husband has really taught me, is like, feelings about this kind of thing aren't mutually exclusive.
Yes.
I think sometimes we really judge ourselves because we're feeling something, but we have to remember that these feelings are so complicated. And 1 second you could be feeling something you feel shameful for. And then 5 minutes later, you could be feeling something that actually you feel okay to talk about, that you feel like no one's going to judge you for. So I think, just like you said, knowing that these emotions are so complicated and that they're changing constantly, and that they're all okay, whether or not they're negative or positive about a negative situation, they're all okay. Is there something that you tell men that, or really anybody when it comes to grief, like certain things that you can say to your significant other or family member, whoever it is, someone you're close to, in order to help them through it, and certain things not to say?
Yeah. I think something that can be helpful is even starting off with, and I heard a lot of people say this to me, of, I know there's no right thing I can say here, but I am here with you right now. I think with miscarriage especially, it's really helpful to ask kind of like open-ended questions that in no way assume what their experience is. So instead of saying something like, oh my God, I'm sure you're so devastated right now, tell me about it. If that's not their experience, they're automatically going to feel kind of like closed off or worried. I'm like, am I supposed to feel devastated right now? That's not what I feel.
Right.
So instead, being able to just share of like, yeah, like, I know there's something right I can say right now, but I'm here with you and I want to know what's going on for you. Tell me what this means to you. And even if they don't want to say anything, I'm like, you don't have to say anything. I'm just going to be here next to you. I think another really helpful thing is open-ended questions and mirroring their reality is an important piece. Like, so if you're sitting with someone who is in a place of like, this just fucking sucks. Like, I am mad. I'm unhappy. I think a lot of us have that tendency that it sucks to see someone that you love in pain. So we want to just fix it. We want to turn that frown upside down. And that can feel, like you mentioned earlier, dismissive. So instead, being able to be like, this does really, really suck. Let's talk about it. Like, it is not okay. I remember my sister-in-law, I think when I was kind of like in that place of like, this really sucks, she's like, it does. Do you want to go like toilet paper someone's house? Like, what would happen? And I was like, I loved that. Like, that was almost one of the best things that someone could say to me in that moment, because it reflected where I was at.
Right.
And I really needed to hear that.
Totally. And I think it's also important for friends or significant others or anyone who has a person in their life experiencing a loss to bring it up even when the other person is not even saying anything about it or talking about it, because just to know that they're thinking about it and they're caring about it and that you don't have to trigger the conversation means something, because for us, we're thinking about it all the time. And sometimes we feel like we're forgotten, that our feelings are forgotten, and that we don't want to bring it up all the time because we feel like a burden. So I think it's so important for other people to be bringing it up as well.